Inspiring next. Action 1, Inspiring next.
Look up, because you never know what you will see. Hi, my name is Shen Ge, and I'm the host of SG2 on Space, the only weekly space show here in Houston, with Action 1 Media Group support every Thursday night. So, my goal here is to educate the public in terms of space science, space flight, physics, astronomy, etc. You know, all that cool jazz, and occasionally about aliens as well. So STEAM education, science, technology, engineering, arts, since that's part of the creative aspect, and mathematics is very important to me. And I feel like Action 1 Media's goal is aligned with mine. So together, we hope to encourage the knowledge, and especially the passion and interest in outer space in our Houston community. Tune in to SG2 on Space on Thursdays at 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Look up, because you never know what you will see.
All right, everybody, this is your host, Shen Ge. Another beautiful Thursday here in the studio of Action 1 Media. As you can see behind me, as always, Action 1 Media Group. Any case, so you're listening to SG2 on Space, episode number 38. I'm sure you're either watching us on www.weara1.com, which is Action 1 Media website, or YouTube and Facebook. My Facebook, facebook.com/The Shen Show. That's it. Shen, spelled S-H-E-N. You guys, I don't know. It's a pretty simple name, right? If you listen to me, you should know it by now. All right, that statement aside, let's talk about what's going on today. Well, primarily, today's theme is, I call it Loony for the Moon, or Lunatic for the Moon, just because I like to play words, I write poetry, why not? All right, so 50 years ago this week, humans, mankind, if we're going to be, whatever. So, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon, right? I think we all know those names. So, can you believe it? It's been like 50 years since 1969. Specifically, July 20th, 1969. So with all that time frame that has passed, 50 years, half a century, it's considered fairly momentous. Um, I mean, I guess 50 is just a landmark, right? So in case you guys need a quick recap, President Kennedy, during the height of the Cold War, President Kennedy challenged the country to land a man on the moon before the end of the decade, this was in the 1960s, right? And guess what? NASA did it. So mission began the morning of July 16th, 1969. Astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins seated at the command module Columbia atop a Saturn V rocket, the largest rocket that's ever been created, at the Kennedy Space Center at 9:32 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The three-stage, 36-story rocket used 7.5 million pounds of thrust to propel the crew into space and history. In case you guys want to see a Saturn V rocket here in Houston, you can. Just go to Rocket Park down at NASA JC. All right. Then 3 days later, so 3 days after July 16th, so on July 19th, Armstrong and Aldrin, they climbed into the lunar module to attempt the first ever landing on the moon's surface. Their spacecraft was named after a bird. What do you think it's called? The Eagle. Get it? The Eagle has landed? Right. Okay. In honor of the wind symbol of America. And it was also the flight mission's insignia. All right. Collins, he didn't get a chance to, set foot on the moon. He had to stay behind on the Columbia. He later wrote that the lunar module was the weirdest looking contraption I have ever seen in the sky. Well, glad that it worked, even though it looked weird. All right, so the people may not know this, but the moon landing was actually not a guaranteed success, right? During the final seconds of the Eagle's descent, computer alarms were sounding. There were fuel running really low, so Neil Armstrong manually took control of the ship and steered clear of the boulders that was around the landing site. And then at 4:18 p.m., I would presume that'd be Eastern time, July 20th, 1969, Armstrong radioed back to anxious Earth. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. And then 6 hours later, at 9:56 p.m., Armstrong took his one giant leap for mankind. And then Buzz Aldrin, joined him 15 minutes later. And then these folks spent 2.5 hours collecting soil samples and rocks and, putting the flag in there, photographing the surface, and doing all those cool stuff for a little bit. Then they climbed back into the ascent module, shot up, rejoined Collins up there, Michael Collins in the command module, and the command module plus a lunar ascent module that came back to Earth. And 4 days later, they splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. That's a quick summary of this. Of course, there is a whole lot of, if you actually want to hear the whole thing, there turns out to be one. That is, in fact, you can find it on YouTube, which is rather interesting. That somebody uploaded the whole coverage from back then, the full CBS coverage of the entire lunar landing. It's like 2.5 hours, so not going to show it here. However, we will show something in a little bit. But for right now, let me mention the fact that there's a number of events going on. And if you go to nasa.gov/special/Apollo 50th with a TH /events.html, you would see a bunch of them. Here in Houston, there's just two I would mention. There's the Lunar Planetary Institute 50th anniversary, That is going to be this Saturday, July 20th, from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Lunar and Planetary Institute. So activities include virtual reality explorations of the moon, hands-on exploration of the moon, scientist presentations, planetarium presentations, door prizes, LPI Library open house. And the event is free of charge, all right? So located 3600 Bay Area Boulevard in Houston, 77058. I may attend that. Haven't decided yet. All right, another one, Space Center Houston celebration, in case you want to dish out a bit more money, which would be about $50 unless you're a member. And that one is at the Space Center Houston, right next to NASA. It kicks off at 9:15. So there's going to be speakers from Apollo era and today. There's going to be Golden Knights, the U.S. Army, whatever official aerial parachute demonstration team will parachute in during the ceremony. So it's going to be a huge deal. There's also going to be an outdoor concert and festival. Like I said, there's some presentations. There's Apollo era flight controllers giving presentations. There's book signings. And there's various other exhibits, and there's also other concerts. Okay, so there's a lot going on. So if you want to attend that, that's like $50, and go to the Space Center Houston website, right? And you do go ahead and do that. All right. So with that, let's take a short break. When we get back, we will have a little clip of the Back to the Moon stuff, and then we'll talk some more.
You're tuned into the all-new Action 1 Network. Turn up your volume.
We can do what we like. So come by. I love it when you come by. I love it when you come by.
But I just took a trip, went and saw the truth. You should get a ride on mamas. I'm the best thing got in Houston since Hakeem, Elijah, Warner, me and Nine.
It's everything. This is where the race. This is my medicine. This is you and me. Everybody so sick.
He says he loves it when I'm natural. He loves it.
Trying to control the masses, but I'm still skipping the classes, so I don't have to listen to the madness.
So much value in who you are. You should know it's okay to take your time.
Action 1, doing it for the culture.
Get in the action at weareA1.com. Put your money where your community is. Get in the action at weareA1.com.
Man, you still here? Go on and subscribe.
Get into action.
Yo, we back at it again, baby.
What?
Get into action.
3.
Get into action.
Tell me what is the deal. Tell me what is the deal.
So I challenge you today to start strong.
Get in the action.
Tell me what is the deal. Cause I'm calling for you.
Get in the action.
Can you feel that? Yeah. See, I'm calling for you. Can you feel that? Yeah. See, I'm calling for you. Can you feel that? Yeah. See, I'm calling for you. Say how you really feel.
All right, so all right, we're back in the studio here. You've been listening to SG2. You are listening to SG2 in Space, episode number 38. As noted, our theme today is Apollo 11, the moon. Of course, we're going to talk about other stuff as well, but that's the central theme. So with that, let's play a little short clip. I know a lot of us were not born during that era. Some part of me, well, that means I would be older, right? Yeah, if I was like a little kid in 1969, I would probably be in my 50s or 60s by now. But, you know, I'm not. So, anyways, thankfully, these old footage have been recorded. We did have TV back then, so let's watch a short clip.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, geez, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent? Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface. Up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
All right, so you can saw that little short clip. Yeah, obviously the whole thing, like I said, you can see it on the CBS. Just look up CBS Apollo 11, and you will see like a 3-hour clip of the whole thing, pretty much covering from it sitting on the launch pad all the way to, you know, the whole process, right? Okay, so in any case, yeah. All right, so we're celebrating 50 years in the past, but I don't want to just talk about that. What about the future, right? Because, you know, December 1972 was the last time humans were on the moon. I mean, there was Apollo 11, Apollo 12, Apollo 13, you know, which didn't quite work out, Apollo 14, Apollo 15, Apollo 16, and Apollo 17, right? So we got all this stuff, these moon missions, and Apollo 17, you know, that was the last one. So December, it was last time humans, any man or woman, okay, there has been no woman on the moon, any human has been on the moon, right? So what can we do now? Well, thankfully, if you watch some past episodes of the show, you know that NASA wants to go back to the moon by 2024, in fact, which is highly ambitious, but could be doable, right? Now, there's quite a lot of stuff NASA needs to do. They're building this gigantic, okay, you need a giant rocket, right? Saturn V has been long retired. It's, like I said, it's sitting as museum pieces. You need a giant rocket. You need what we call the Orion now, which is our latest version of like the Apollo modules, right? The spacecraft that's going to be on top of the rocket. You also need new kinds of spacesuits. NASA also wants to build a space station around the moon, so you got to build that. So there's all these different pieces, right? And it's quite a lot of work. I mean, and things have been slipping behind schedules. There's definitely some doubt whether all this could come together by 2024, right? Because you don't just build the hardware, you also have to test it. And these are going to be humans, right? You don't want people to die, all right? So I have here a short video of essentially what what needs to be done here. All right. So the idea here, to put it succinctly, by next year, 2020 sometime, the plan is to have both Orion, which is a space capsule, and the SLS, the Space Launch System, which is a gigantic rocket, to fly together on the first mission, and that one would just be going around the moon and coming back. All right, so this is to test both the Space Launch System as well as Orion, and making sure they both work well together, right? So this test launch is called Artemis 1, okay? That's the first launch, and it will not have any humans. The second one, it will carry a crew on test flight around the moon, once again, called Artemis 2, all right? And then the third flight, called Artemis 3, all right. Yes, Artemis 3, it will take humans to the gateway, the lunar gateway, which is what NASA calls the space station that NASA is planning to build. And then from the gateway, you go down to the lunar surface. All right. So gateway itself has been a controversial addition. Some people think, why are we spending more money and time building this extra space station? Why not just go directly to the moon, right? That's what Apollo did. They went directly to the moon. They didn't think, oh, we need to build a space station around the moon first. Well, you know, there's a rationale for that, in that, you know, it's basically, think of it like as a staging ground before you get to the moon, right? So you have a little base out there. Now, you can definitely read a lot of papers on, hey, why have the gateway, why not have the gateway, which I'm not going to go into here. I forgot one last crucial thing. So I mentioned mentioned the SLS, the rocket, Orion, the space capsule or spacecraft, the gateway, which seems to be optional, but for our current mission architecture is required. 3. There's also the lander. I forgot to mention that. So yes, you actually do need to land on the moon, right? Your spacecraft isn't not just going to crash land on the moon. You need to. That would be bad. So you need to have a separate piece that separates from the main spacecraft and lands on the moon. All right. That part is really up in the air right now, pun intended. NASA has yet to decide which commercial company to go with. See, in the past, NASA had all the control, right? And would make, like, for instance, for Apollo, NASA said, okay, this is exactly how we're going to build it, all right? You guys, you contractors, build it like we want it. Nowadays, things have become more open, more commercialized, so NASA's like, okay, we're not going to tell you exactly what to do. In fact, you have a great deal of flexibility. We have some basic requirements. You can design it however you want, and then we're gonna pick 2 lunar designs. So it's more what do you call it? It's more friendly for private industry. No doubt there may be more innovative ideas generated. So I myself think this approach probably works better. You got businesses competing. All right. So right now it seems the main ones that would be competing is Lockheed Martin and Blue Origin, possibly SpaceX as well. So remember earlier this year in April, Lockheed Martin unveiled its idea for lunar lander that pretty much drew a lot on the design of the Orion spacecraft, which, by the way, Lockheed Martin, that's designed by Lockheed Martin, right? So in May this year, Blue Origin unveiled their beautiful, it was a beautiful display, their Blue Moon human lander concept. It was great, right? All right, so so that's all very interesting. And the last piece, which NASA needs to really work on, is spacesuits. All right, so we are in need of a new kind of spacesuit. That's fairly crucial to any future moon landing. The lunar surface has a lot of dust and things like that. Our current spacesuits are not really designed for that because our, going around the outside of the International Space Station in low Earth orbit is a different environment than being on the moon, right? Part of the problem over the development is a lack of clarity on where exactly, NASA wants to go, whether it's to the moon or Mars. These are different environments, right? So, overall, you can see there's quite a number of issues. The agency would definitely need a boost in funding to get this entire program, the Artemis program, the sister of Apollo, within such a tight frame. The White House has asked for additional $1.6 billion for NASA this year on top of the agency's regular budget. Bernstein, the NASA administrator, has said that the entire Artemis program will require $20 to $30 more billion in addition to NASA's average annual budget. We shall see if that can happen. I mean, we're not in the middle of a Cold War right now, at least not like back in the 60s. So, I don't know. Let's see what will happen. And please note, this is exciting also because I think we're going to get the first woman on the moon. Since this, in fact, that's what they say. They want to send at least one woman to the moon this time. That's it's Artemis, right? It's a sister of Apollo. So, I don't know who it would be, but that'd be interesting, assuming all this pulls off. All right. So, I guess we have this lovely thing on the screen right here, which is just sitting here, but that's fine. Might as well move on, right? Well, this 11-minute clip actually is pretty much what I just said. So, if you want a visual, I guess, with some other narrator, you can just look up why NASA hasn't gone back to the moon. All right. So, maybe a few other things I didn't say, but that's fine. I mean, it's a, it's not a very long video, but it's a long video in the scope of this show, right? I want to move on to talk about something that most people, well, technical people, don't seem to talk about much, and I'm not sure I ever mentioned it either. So, it's a matter of spirituality and space, all right? And that area, you might think, okay, going to space is scientific, it's technical. What does that have to do with religion or spirituality? Well, I found this really interesting in that the Apollo astronauts, they actually, some of them were highly religious, I will say. So, for instance, Buzz Aldrin, right? Okay, when they were been on the moon for less than an hour, NASA wanted the astronauts to rest for a bit, for a few hours before they exit the lunar module to make humanity's great leap. Right, this is before Armstrong set his foot down on the moon. So just before the blackout, because the moon orbits and you can't communicate, Aldrin asked his listeners to give thanks in his or her own way for the safe landing. All right, it wasn't his first choice of words, but it would have to do. All right, so interesting thing. The weeks before Apollo 11, Buzz Aldrin met with his pastor at the Webster Presbyterian Church in Houston to help him perform a symbolic act to christen the moon landing. He initially wanted to do something patriotic, but ended up deciding to do something of faith, right, which is taking communion. So essentially what happened is that, while during the blackout, Buzz Aldrin actually took communion. May not know that because it was during the blackout, so nobody saw him, right? Except Neil Armstrong saw him. All right, so now how did all this come about? This kind of religious influence. I mean, was there other ones? It turns out there was. Oh yeah, and let me just summarize what Buzz Aldrin said. Actually, he read a passage from the Gospel of John, written on an index card. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me will bring forth much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And he wrote it in a little index card. Should have memorized it, but oh well. So, in any case, Apollo actually had a Apollo Prayer League, all right, which basically, some of the astronauts, they joined in and they prayed together, and they wanted to take a Bible to the moon. Okay, this was actually started by a Presbyterian missionary and University science teacher who joined NASA in 1964. So try this a couple of times. The first microform. Okay, so a full-fledged Bible is pretty heavy, right? Well, depending on what you buy, but basically, to go into space, you want to reduce mass. So ultimately, they decided to stick with a microform copy of the Bible, which was tiny. It flew on Apollo 12, but unfortunately never made it to the lunar surface. It was accidentally stowed in the command module and not the lunar lander, right? Second attempt was made during Apollo 13. You know how that went. Nobody landed on the moon for that one. And then Apollo 14 with Edgar Mitchell, he carried 100 microform Bibles to the surface of the moon and then returned them to Earth. All right. So now it might seem like, oh my gosh, all these astronauts were like praying or doing something on the moon. Well, they weren't actually. They had too much going on. So no, some of them have faith in God, but not all of them were cared or felt anything. So James Irwin, for instance, he did feel something. He said he felt God all around him. And Irwin, actually, this was Apollo 15 astronaut James Irwin. He felt so overcome with his experience on the lunar surface that he asked his fellow astronaut colleague, David Scott, if they could hold a religious service atop some nearby hills. This was on the moon, right? Before they left the moon. And this got, like, I don't know, they must have discussed it, but he shot down the idea. So Irwin just quoted a passage from Psalm 121. All right. Now, this is all really interesting because it's not just Apollo astronauts that feel this, right? There's also some people who went to like the ISS, the space station, and then looked down upon Earth. Author Frank White, back in 1987, he wrote a book, and he gave a name to this quasi-religious experience called the Overview Effect. All right. Now, this is a more general scope than the Christian experiences that the Apollo astronauts experienced. This is more of a spiritual phenomenon. So, who knows? Maybe you know, when the next humans get to the moon, they will experience something as well. I don't know. That would be really interesting. Now, you or I, okay, I'm not going to dismiss anybody who wants to get to the moon or in space in general. But for most of us, you know, it may be hard. So how can you experience that similarly? Well, there's a company called Space VR that's trying to simulate that. They are putting they're essentially connecting 4K cameras to CubeSat, so it's going to be launched up, and they're going to place users in a flotation tank where you just float. You know, you float on water, right? With a VR headset playing videos from orbit. They've done this test with about 30 people, and many of them have experienced something similar. I think that's really cool, right? And it's, you know, so you guys, whenever that comes out, why not give it a shot? So the founder of this, he basically said that he would like to have these sensory chambers, what he calls galactic temples. Sounds like a pretentious name, but whatever, around the world. All right, it does sound pretentious. I'm gonna say that. All right, but it'd be cool, you know, if you want a godlike spiritual experience, I suppose, or at least see if you have one, or it might just be cool. All right, so okay, all right, we are more than halfway through. So, you know, I talk about America, moon, going back to the moon, NASA. All right, what about other countries, right? I can't just focus on America. I mean, sure we can, but let's talk about some of the other exciting things. The interesting thing is that, you know, nobody went to the moon for like 40 plus years, right? Even the Soviets, the last lunar lander that they sent, left in the early 1970s as well. And then in the last 5 years, maybe less than 5 years, last 3 years, there's been a flurry of activity to, you know, for various countries to get back to the moon. Latest edition, okay, I've talked about Chinese Chang'e 5 before, which is on the Chang'e 4, sorry, which is on the moon right now. There is India. India is launching their first lunar lander, which would be the fourth country after what is it? U.S., Soviet Union / Russia, China, right? This is called the Chandrayaan 2. It was built by the Indian Space Research Organization, which is their equivalent of the space agency, right? And it's going to be launched at 9:13 GMT on July 22nd. So now they were going to do it earlier this Monday morning, but it was aborted. So it's delayed to July 22nd. So this is going to be a lander. It is now Israel has previously, you know, Chandrayaan 1, that was just an orbiter, right? So the typical strategy is go build an orbiter. That's easier, right? Orbit it, and then do a lander, and then possibly a lander and a rover, and then humans, right? If you go that way. All right. Israel Chairman Kasavadi, cannot say long Indian names. Kalasavadivu Savan. Man, I really dislike me not knowing how to say these names, but that's what happens. All right, so he said it will foster a new age of discovery, increase our understanding of space, promote more global alliances, stimulate the advancement of technology, and grow commercial opportunities in India and inspire future generations. All right. And it's cost effective. It's a price tag of just $141 million. And that includes the rocket, the orbiter, the spacecraft going around, the lander. Oh, and they do have a rover. Lander, rover, and scientific payloads. Okay. So, now, this is the India's finance prime minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, formally announced in her budget speech on July 5th the creation of a new public sector enterprise called New Space India Ltd. So clearly they're going for the commercial route as well. This is the interesting part. It's not just plant your flag on the moon or roam around and then do science and that's it. There's definitely a commercial aspect to this that these countries are wanting to tap into. India is one of them, right? So currently, India's space industry is estimated to generate about $7 billion in annual revenue, and that most likely will increase as these developments increase, right? I'm not sure if they're thinking of landing a human on the moon, but maybe, right? Who knows? Okay, the other side of the news is China, which is also trying to get a human on the moon soon. In fact, there was an article that came out that said next Neil Armstrong may be Chinese as moon race intensifies, which I thought was funny. Because why would he be Neil Armstrong? I mean, there's only one Neil Armstrong. You already had a first person on the moon. So if that would, whatever, doesn't make any sense. All right, but still, make up a fake Chinese name and throw that in there. That sounds better. All right. So point is, China National Space Administration, CNASA, has been going around trying to form collaborations with various governments, right? Since China and U.S. cannot work together, hence, China had to develop a lot of its technology on its own. But it is trying to work with other nations, such as signed an agreement in Pakistan in April 2019. It's trying to work with European Space Agency, ESA, Brazil, and France. Now, there has been a few mishaps, like the Chang'e 5 launch. Actually, Chang'e 5 launch, that's not happening yet. But the Long March 5, that's what I meant. That heavy lift rocket, which is a rocket that would be big enough to lift, take you to the moon. It failed within 6 minutes of takeoff. This was 2 years ago. So they're going to have to test that again and get it ramped up. So the top official, actually, I should know his Chinese name, but whatever. Ye Peijian. Okay. All right. Explained why China wants to go to the moon, and it is, if we're now capable of going, but we don't go, future generations will blame us. If others go there, then they will take over. Okay, so I think a lot of, for Chinese, it is national pride and showing, this is what we're capable of. Now, the difference between China now and say, the Soviet Union or America during the Cold War is that you're not just going there just to plant a flag and that's it. There is a long-term plan of step by step that you're going to go there and settle and so forth, right? Build a base. And and all these countries, so we got all this competition going on, right? Okay, so I'll just summarize. There's NASA, there's China, there's India at least, there's these commercial companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and they're all trying to go to the moon, and it turns out all of them are trying to go to like the same place, which is the South Pole Aitken Basin, where there's water and ice. Okay, and that's helpful for, guess what, humans need water. Also, you can get rocket fuel if you break down water. All right, so we shall see what happens. I mean, this is exciting times. All right, with that exciting time comment, let's go on break, and then we'll come right back.
Your money where your community is. Get in the
some of the
action.
other things you got going
Action
on.
One.
Absolutely. So
Independent
thank you for having me.
together.
I feel like
Inspiring.
I'm in the presence of like celebrities. Y'all real fans to me.
It's the shades, man. It's the shades.
So I think like 2000.
Put your money where your community is. Get in the action. Action 1. Independent thinkers working together. Inspiring action in media. Get in the action. Inspire today. Join us by being a sponsor at weareA1.com. Put your money where your community is. Get in the action. Action 1. Independent thinkers working together. Inspiring action in media. Get in the action. Inspire today. Join us by being a sponsor at weareA1.com.
Growing up as a black kid in New Jersey, all I ever wanted to do was be a pro athlete. All of my role models were black athletes. And every time I would stare out the window and look at the sky and wonder what I'd be in the future, it always had to do with me catching some crazy football and scoring a touchdown. When it came to the point that I was told that I would not be able to play on an organized sports team for the rest of my life, it was something that I really didn't even know how to stomach in the moment. And I remember walking out of my cardiologist's office and just sitting in the hallway and breaking down for a few minutes just because it was something that I just couldn't plan for and couldn't account for. And I realized that in that moment, my entire life was going to be changed. And all of those dreams and hopes and aspirations that I had were going to go out of the window.
All right, so you're listening to SG2 on Space with your host Shen Ge. The theme here has been called Looney for the Moon. All right, and mostly been talking about Apollo 11, what NASA has done in the past, what NASA plans to do, the hurdles in front of NASA, other countries trying to get to the moon, some spirituality in space, what basically Apollo astronauts experience, and you know what other astronauts have also experienced. So now let's talk a bit about science, okay? Why not? All right. One of the cool things that was left behind on the moon, yes, I'll talk about the moon a little bit more, then I'll talk about some other science. One of the cool things left behind the moon was lunar retroreflectors, which you can think of as giant mirrors that are put on the moon, and you can bounce laser pulses at it, so you can measure the distance, right? So Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong were the first ones who placed these every single one of these astronauts put lunar retroreflectors, but they were the first ones. So it's called lunar laser ranging, and it works like this. Okay, laser pulse from the ground shoots out of a telescope on bad demonstration. Out of Earth onto the moon, bounces back the mirror, right? You know how fast light travels, you can figure out the distance, right? It makes, it basically bounces back where it comes from. All right. So we are able to estimate the distance in the moon to better than a few centimeters, which is amazing. I mean, that's pretty cool considering how far away the moon is. There's 5 retroreflectors on the moon right now, 3 from Apollo 11, 14, and 15, and 2 French design instruments, which are on the Soviet missions, LUNAcode 1 and LUNAcode 2. So the original Apollo 11 one still functions today. All right. So what have we learned from that? Well, the moon's spiraling away from the Earth at a rate of 3.8 centimeters per year. This is predicted by physics and confirmed. So yes, the moon's getting further and further and further away from Earth. All right. Okay. So that's one thing. 2, the moon has a liquid core. Did not know that, right? And 3, the universal force of gravity is stable. It's extraordinarily stable as far as we know. All right. Now, the cool thing is that before the year 2024, by 2022, NASA's, remember those commercial companies for lunar lander that I talked about a little while ago? Well, the Commercial Lunar Payload Services Project, CLPS, one of the payloads that's going to go up there is called the Next Generation Lunar Retroreflector, which is going to be a more advanced version of this, right? So, the most important change is that it's going to change from a panel of a small cube corner retroreflector to a single large cube corner retroreflector, all right? So The goal is to have 3 of these deployed at different carrier missions, different lunar locations, increase the area of the moon covered, right? Since right now you got only these few areas where the Apollo and the Soviet missions were landed. So this will allow us to test, enable new tests of general relativity, and could possibly shed light on dark matter, which I'm not sure how, but that's what they say. It could also help with mapping and navigation capabilities, helping humans going back to the moon, right? Okay. Speaking of jumping onto the next topic, speaking of all this, what did I say? Dark matter, general relativity stuff. Well, let's talk about quantum entanglement. This has very little to do with the moon. I can't see how it's related, actually. Except it could possibly be used in technology, quantum computing, who knows. But, okay, so we've demonstrated quantum entanglement before, but this is the first time. This is cool. Just in this week, we have captured the first ever photograph of quantum entanglement. All right. And quantum entanglement, briefly summarized, is a phenomenon where 2 particles interact with each other, can remain connected, instantaneously sharing their physical states no matter how far apart they are. So think about it like this. Let's just say I go shake your hand, all right? This is a analogy, all right? So I go shake your hand. We somehow become entangled, all right? And then I go home and I raise my left hand. You, without you knowing anything about what I'm doing, you suddenly raise your right hand, let's just say. All right, so you see that? You and I have become inextricably linked in some way, all right? So Einstein called this spooky action at a distance because, Einstein came up with relativity, which says nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. But obviously with this, you can, right? So it's like you have the same information all the time, no matter how far apart you are. All right. So we've shown this repeatedly throughout various experiments. But for the first time ever, a team of physicists from the University of Glasgow, which is in Scotland, took an image of a form of quantum entanglement, a particular form called Bell entanglement, all right? As Dr. Moreau said at the University of Glasgow press release, the image we have managed to capture is an elegant demonstration of a fundamental property of nature, seen for the very first time in the form of an image. It's an exciting result which could be used to advance the emerging field of quantum computing and lead to new types of imaging. Cool stuff. So what did they do? They created a device which shot a stream of photons, which basically this stream of photons are fired from a quantum light source. And then this stream passes through a series of quote-unquote non-conventional objects, which are basically liquid crystal materials that changes the phase of the photons as they pass through. And then there's a super sensitive camera that's capable of detecting single photons and capturing images of them. All right. And then the camera is programmed to only take pictures if it caught sight of both one photon and its entangled twin. All right. Long story short, this is really cool stuff. If you go to the website or if you look it up, quantum entanglement image captured, if you look that up, you will see, you will see those images. Okay. So this could be really interesting for future quantum information, quantum computing, cryptology, as well as quantum imaging techniques. Right. All cool stuff. Also, another cool stuff on a far less advanced level is the fact that no one can hear you scream in space. This may sound quite mundane to you, but it's still a pretty cool experiment that was conducted for very cheap. All right, so the scientists at the University of Glasgow spends, I'm going to guess millions of dollars to do experiment, right? That's cool. This guy, is just one guy, Omar God. He's a University of Brunel, Brunel, B-R-U-N-E-L. I guess he graduated from University of Brunel. He's an electrical engineer. Partnered up with a BBC radio show called The Naked Scientist and decided to do this really cheap experiment because he was wondering, can I just do this really cheap experiment to, float a balloon up into space and show that really you can't hear people in space? Remember the 1979 movie Alien? I don't know how many people watched it. That was the original one. There's a line there that says, in space, no one can hear you scream. which is apparently true, proven by this. So this guy, oh my God, he bought everything off of Amazon. Imagine that. And the whole thing was less than 250 pounds. So it had a telemetry device that enabled the team to track the balloon's journey from the ground. It had a range over 500 kilometers and cost about 15 pounds. Can you imagine? I mean, like, that's how far our electronics have advanced today, okay? So any of you could build a balloon and send stuff up into space if you really want to, for cheap, okay? And if you're smart, that helps too. And, yeah. But anyways, so he teamed up with Dr. Chris Smith, who's the host of the Cambridge University-based podcast, the podcast The Naked Scientist, and the guy, Dr. Chris Smith, suggested, hey, how about you do an audio experiment, right? So what did he do? He solicited screams from millions of people around the world. That's right. I wish I knew this earlier. I would have sent him my scream. So you send him a soundbite of you screaming, right? Whatever you're screaming. So one of the winners turned out to be Noha, a mom from South Africa. I'm not going to screen this. But basically, it's children come and clean your room, which is something that my mom has never said it to me because she gets tired and she just cleans my room since she knows I won't do it. But that was back then, all right? Nowadays, yeah, I clean my own room. But why don't we watch a short clip? Because it's actually quite interesting. So you can see the recording, hear the recording while it was going up into space. So we launch the whole thing. It's actually...
3, 2, 1, lift off!
Children, come and clean your room! Woo-hoo! Hungos! Ollie dolly, treat! Children, come and clean your room! Woo-hoo! Hungos! Ollie dolly, treat!
90,000 feet now. Nobody could hear anything. And then, woo, you fall down. Okay, so your balloon probably bursts, and then you fall all the way down to the ground, which they don't show. All right. So, which is pretty darn cool, right? I mean, I think everybody knows that because air molecules transmit sound. That's what we hear, right? Vibrations of air molecules in space. There's not as much air molecules. But still, it's really cool to actually see this demonstrated, I think. Especially having your mom yell, children come and clean your room. Yeah, actually, you know what? Next time you can just say, I can't hear you because I'm in space. You could use that excuse if you're actually in space. All right? And then you probably get slapped by your mom. So, but hey, it's funny, right? All right. Running a little short on time here. So the last thing I want to say is, okay, you guys, I wish I had some good alien stories, but it seems these days when I do a search for aliens, all I come up with is Storm Area 51. Seriously, I think that's grabbed every single other alien headline because you put in aliens or UFOs in Google search right now, you're just going to get the Storm Area 51 thing. Okay, so in case you don't know what that is originally started out as a joke, right? And I mentioned that to you last time, but it turned out since then it has just grown even more. Over 900,000 people have pledged on Facebook to attend an event called Storm Area 51. Which is basically, Area 51, highly classified military base in U.S., which was not even admitted to exist until like 6 years ago or something like that. All right? So even though everybody knew it was there, the U.S. government was like, no, it doesn't exist. Okay. All right. And even knowing that it exists, long conspiracies are, Roswell incidents, UFOs, some hidden technology there, alien autopsies. Gosh, who knows what's going on there, right? We don't know. It's top secret. All right. So what is this group's intention? Well, to see them aliens, as they put it. See them aliens. That's right. All right. So, okay. So it's going to storm Area 51 on September 20th, 2019 at 3 p.m. in southern Nevada. They're all going to congregate there, and then apparently they're going to run like the anime character Naruto in the anime Naruto, since you know how they run like by putting the arms behind their backs, and somehow that increases their speed. So like all the ninjas do it. They put their arms behind their back, and like they're just uber fast. All right. So the Facebook event page says if we Naruto run, we can move faster than their bullets, right? Yeah, if we Naruto run, we can move faster than bullets. Guys, don't try this, all right? But okay, so 900,000 has said they're gonna go. 849,000 have said that they're interested in going. All right, so that's like over 1.5 million people, which is ridiculous. It's only been around for what, like 2 or 3 weeks, and you get all right. Now this has gotten so ridiculous that the organizer event has come out and said, "Oh my gosh, you know, I'm just trying to be funny." All right, okay, clear this up, right? Now I think most people know that this is a joke, you know, of the 1.5 million people, I would hope. The area they're gonna go to is very remote and it's guarded. Okay, it's a hostile natural environment. You're going in the middle of the desert. There's almost nothing there. And they got guards and fences. I don't know how you're gonna get across, all right? So it's probably a very bad idea to go. But, you know, there may be a few people who may go. I don't know. Regardless, the military is not taking any chances. And as noted, probably rightfully so, they don't really have a sense of humor. I would just say that. So basically, hey, I can say that. So the Air Force spokesperson, Laura McAndrews, has told News that, the Washington Post in this case, Area 51 is an open training range for the U.S. Air Force, and we would discourage anyone from trying to come into the area where we train American armed forces. The U.S. Air Force always stands ready to protect America and its assets. So, yep. So if anybody goes and gets shot, I think that's going to cause a lot of outrage. So hopefully nobody does that. So if you, there's a hashtag hashtag Area 51. That's pretty popular these days, and even Burger King and you know, other establishments have jumped onto it. I think Anheuser-Busch has released some alien beer or something, and they're gonna give beer if you're an alien and you break out of Area 51. Okay, that's kind of wild, but hey, that might be cool if you're an alien. You could do that. But in any case, so just cashing into the craze, right? All right. So I myself have not joined, and I don't plan to be there. But normally I encourage everybody to, you know, look up and keep an open mind. But in this case, I suggest, you know, be safe, right? Okay. So, all right. This brings us to the conclusion of episode number 38, SG2 on Space, with your host, Shen Ge. Remember to follow me on Facebook.com/The Shen Show, TheShenShow. And if you haven't already, follow Action One Media as well on Facebook, Facebook.com/Action One Media, or just go to the website or YouTube. Okay. So, lastly, I'll leave you with these parting words. Can you guess where they are? Okay. I'm trying to recollect my own memory. I'm pretty sure it says... I don't know the exact words, but basically... How embarrassing. Essentially, hey guys, I'm just going to say this, right? Don't forget to ever not look up, right? Look up, because you never know what you will see. There you go. That's right. You could see some aliens. That way you don't even have to go to Area 51. All right? So go do that. Bye, everybody.
Peace, it's Brother Atum Ra, and you tuned in to Action One Network.